There's a gallery secret that can turn a $300 artwork into a $5,000 masterpiece while increasing your sales. And it only takes 2 minutes of work. I revealed it during an art fair in London. So I'm walking on the fair. It's a mixture of independent artists and galleries. And at a sudden moment, I see one particular artist that catches my eye. Absolutely amazing art. By far the best artist on the fair. So I stop and start talking with him and I ask him how it is going. And he's very real, very honest, and he tells me that it's not going that well, that he didn't sold any art yet, and you can see the shame in his face, you can feel the sadness. Because he didn't sold anything yet, he feels like his art is worthless. And as we are talking at a sudden moment, he says, while laughing a little bit, that perhaps he should have listened to his father when his father encouraged him to not quit art school to pursue an art career. And I asked him how much he sells his art for, and he points at a particular artwork, $300, and then another artwork, $900. Now, you have to understand that the galleries on that fair that are selling art of lesser quality are selling it in between $5,000 and $10,000. And so I immediately know what's happening. He is making the same mistake that I made a couple of years earlier in the same building during another fair. And so I asked him the following question. If you have to buy a coffee machine and you don't know anything about coffee machines, you go to the shop, you see 10 coffee machines, 9 from $100 to $650, and there's one that is being sold for $30. Which of the coffee machines do you think has the lowest quality? And he says, well, yeah, probably the $30 one. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what is happening right now on this fair. You have the best art on the fair, but you're selling it for $30. What do you think people who don't know anything about art are going to think about your art? And right before I leave, I tell him, take the prices of your artwork and multiply them by 5 at the very minimum if you want to have a chance on this fair. And I walk off. And as the day goes by, I'm thinking about this artist. Did he follow my advice? And if he did it actually work? And so I can't stop thinking about it. So I go back to the fair. And as I arrive, artists are already packing things up. The fair is kind of over. And I arrive at his booth and I see that his father is taking his son in his arm and his mother is taking a picture. And so I don't really want to interrupt and I don't want to be that guy that is waiting. And so I just walk off. A couple of days later, I get a message from that artist. Here's what he said. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, my father was proud of me for the first time in my entire life. Now, how is it possible that pricing your art higher results in more sales and obviously also more profit? What do these galleries on that fair know that this artist didn't know? I will explain all of this with the $5,000 rule in a minute, but in order to understand it all, I want to show you with a couple of examples what I believe are the most powerful observations you can make about the gallery landscape. This Rothko painting was sold by the Nuttler Gallery, I hope I pronounced their name correctly, for $8.3 million. Now, what's funny about this artwork is that it's fake. The Nuttler Gallery, one of the most respected galleries in the world, one of the oldest in America, had to close down their shop in 2011 because they were selling forgeries for 15 years. Now, what's even more mind-blowing about this is that the Fine Art Expert Institute estimates that 50% of all the art that is circulating in galleries and in auction houses is fake. Now, this is obviously an estimate. What's not an estimate is that 70 to 90% of the art that they check in their laboratories is fake. 90%. That's insane. And so a question I ask myself is, how much genuine honesty is there in the gallery landscape? Here's another example. Between 2008 and 2019, only 2% of the $196 billion of artwork that was sold in auction houses came from female artists. To put that in perspective, Picasso sold in that same period for $4.8 billion. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that one artist, Picasso, sold more than all of the artworks of all of the female artists in the same period in the entire database of Sotheby's combined. And so a question that I ask myself, are female artists less capable to make quality art than men? Probably not. And so if they are as capable of making art, then the question that I ask myself is, does the price of the art in the art market have something to do with the quality of the art? You tell me, but the numbers don't lie. Here's another example. In the first image you see a portion of the Sistine Chapel painted by Michelangelo, a masterpiece. And the restoration that happened, you can barely recognize the face. In the second example, we see an altarpiece painted by Van Eyck. And what happened to the sheep during the restoration is, they demonized the sheep. And then the third example is a fresco in a church in Spain. You get the point. These restorations are happening by the biggest institutions in the world, by the biggest art experts in the world. And this is the result. And so the question I'm asking myself, how much do these big superstar art institutions really care about art? Here's one more example. This is the best example that I could find. Yves Bouvier, a Swiss art dealer, bought the Salvator Mundi for $83 million and immediately sold it to Dmitry Rybolovlev, hope I pronounced that correctly, a Russian billionaire, for $127 million. So he basically deserved a markup of $44 million. When Dmitry heard about this, he sued Yves Bouvier. Now, why is this possible? Why is it possible to mark it up by $44 million basically for storing the artwork and having some connections? Well, it's possible because of the secrecy in the art world. And so the question becomes, what secret strategies, what secret things behind closed doors are happening to make all of this possible? So let's solve these questions. The second selling strategy that I want to share with you is something I stumbled upon by accident while I was backpacking in China. So we want to go to the rice fields because I want to take some cliche shots of rice fields with the sun reflecting in it as it is going down, that type of stuff. And there's only one problem. The sun is already going under and we don't have a lot of time anymore, so I'm naturally stressing out. And suddenly, out of nowhere, there is a 7-year-old child that walks in dressed up in some strange Hani culture outfit. And this is a Chinese child, so she obviously doesn't speak English. In other words, everything that follows happens through nonverbal communication. First, she gives me an egg. She hands out an egg. Now, I kindly refuse because what am I going to do with an unboiled egg? She proceeds to put the egg in my pocket. Now, I'm kind of afraid that this is some kind of pickpocket genius in disguise of a 7-year-old, and so I kindly refuse and kindly push it away. Now, the third time, she proceeds with giving me the egg again. Now, this is a cute little child, so okay, I accept the egg, not realizing what would follow afterwards. She reaches out her hand and asks for money. Now, considering that I'm not a piece of shit and I just received an egg, there's only one right thing to do. I take the egg, I throw it in her face, she starts crying, the whole thing. Of course, I just give her money. Now, a little bit later, I was reading in Persuasion Psychology by Cialdini, and I stumbled upon this exact strategy of giving something of complete meaningless non-value like an egg or like a flower and then asking for money in return. And it turns out that the Hare Krishna Society built around the world 321 centers, including properties, houses, temples, all of that stuff from this begging strategy alone. And so this strategy is actually extremely powerful and extremely lucrative. Now, why is it so powerful? Why is it possible to make so much money, to build all of these things around the world with just giving a flower and then asking for money, or giving an egg and then asking for money? What is happening there? And besides that, what does this have to do with galleries? Galleries are selling $1 million artwork. Sure, they are not using this begging strategy, right? Well, you would be surprised of how similar their strategies actually are. Well, Dennis Reagan did an experiment that explains all of it. So here's what he did. He asked subjects in a room to rate pieces of art, to rate paintings. Now, the aspect of rating paintings was disguised for the real experiment that would occur. And one of the subjects, each time 2 subjects, one of them was an actor. Let's call him Damon. And so here's what would happen. They would rate paintings on aesthetics and stuff like that. And then in a break, Damien would go outside to the toilet and then would come back, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, with 2 Cokes. And then he would say to the subjects, well, I asked if I could buy a bottle of Coke, and so I bought 2. Here's one for you. And of course, the subjects are really happy. The real subjects in the experiment are really happy that they got this bottle of Coke. And then after the study was done, Damien would ask the real subjects if they wanted to buy raffle tickets to win a car, 25 cents a piece. And as you might expect, because it's kind of intuitive. When they got a bottle of Coke and were happy, they bought more raffle tickets. Okay, this is kind of logic. We kind of intuitively understand this. But what's more, and this is very powerful, after the study was done, they also asked the subjects to fill in a questionnaire to rate how much they liked Damien. And what you might expect, when there was no Coke bottle given, the amount of raffle tickets that they bought was linear to the amount they liked Damien. The more they liked Damien, the more raffle tickets they bought. But when there was a Coke that was given, the likability factor had zero impact. The reciprocation desire, the desire to give something back after receiving the Coke, was more powerful than the likability factor. And this explains everything. This is why I was overpaying for an egg that I didn't need it. This is how the Hare Krishna Society built their whole religion up. And this is something that galleries use all of the time. If you go to a solo exhibition and there are 60 people walking around and the art on the walls is, objectively speaking, terrible. Nobody says it's terrible. Everybody says it's amazing. Why do they say that's amazing? Because they get free wine. They are walking around with free wine that they got from the gallery owner, and so now they feel the need to do something back, to reciprocate, namely liking the artworks and in some cases buying the artworks. This is the second selling strategy. This is the power of reciprocation. If you do something for someone, they will be way more likely to do something in return for you afterwards. Now, how do you apply this selling secret as an artist that doesn't have solo shows yet in an ethical way that actually makes you feel good? Well, I've created a whole PDF guide where I list all of the selling secrets galleries use and how you can use them at any point in your career. I will give it away for free at the end of the video. Let's go to the next selling secret and talk about the $5,000 rule. So in the beginning of this video, we talked about an artist on an art fair that priced his art at $5,000 instead of $900 and suddenly started to sell. And so clearly people were more interested in the $5,000 piece. They wanted to buy it more, even though it costed way more money. And so why is that? Well, Dan Ariely explained the psychological phenomenon that is happening here with a beautiful experiment where he asked participants to rate the quality of the wine, to rate the taste of wine, 5 different wines at various price points. And as you would expect, the more the wine costs, the higher they rated the wine. Now here's the twist. 2 of the 5 bottles had the same wine inside. One was priced at $90, the other one was priced at $10, and the participants rated the higher priced wine, even though it was the same, higher. They thought it was more tasteful. Now, this is kind of intuitive, we can understand this, but what's more, and this is mind-blowing, they also put the participants under brain scans while they were doing the experiment, and what they found was that when the wines were the same but priced differently, not only did the participants rated the wine higher when it was priced higher, they also saw more activity in the regions of the brain that were responsible for pleasure. And so what is happening here is that the price not only influences the perceived value, but also the experienced value. And so this is very powerful. And so is it possible that when you price your art higher, people are not only perceiving it as more valuable, but they actually experience more joy, more aesthetically pleasing aspects of the artwork because it is priced higher? Now, I believe that this is absolutely what is happening, and that is why this artist in the beginning of the fair was not selling. He was doing himself a disservice by pricing the art so low. In another study that Dan Ariely did, they gave people painkillers, and all of the painkillers that they gave were placebos. So there was nothing real about it, and they also told the participants the price of each painkiller. And when the painkillers were more expensive, it was better at relieving the pain. So it had more impact, more physiological, biological impact, even though it were placebos. And so placebo is also affected by the perception that you have of the value of that particular thing. And so something as simple as pricing your art higher could in fact make the experience for the collector and for yourself way better in every possible way. Now the question becomes, are there other things that also take only 1 or 2 minutes that would have the same type of impact And then we arrive at the fourth selling secret that I want to share with you. So this gallery secret is also something I stumbled upon by accident. Here's what happened. I'm 16 years old, I'm about to go study architecture, and so I needed a stronger laptop so that I could use the AutoCAD programs and those heavy architecture programs. Now my mom didn't have a lot of money at that time, and so buying a stronger computer means she is not gonna go on vacation that year. And so we arrive at the shop, we go to the computer section, and all of the computers are crammed up, like 10 computers on one table and 10 computers on another table. It's all not a lot of space. You can kind of test them out. Okay, cool. And we review the specs and we go over it. And then there's another section, a much larger section. This one is 20 square meters. The other one is 40, 50 square meters full of Apple computers. And we decide to go and take a look. And we arrive at that section and we only see 4 or 5 computers. A whole table, super large table with just one computer on it. That's it. And immediately I feel this urge to buy an Apple computer. What a beautiful design. Look at the spec. This must be amazing. It's also twice as expensive or 3 times as expensive. And we end up buying an Apple computer. My mom sacrificed not just 1 year of not going to vacations, but 2 years of not going to vacations. Now, why did this happen? Why did we suddenly felt this urge to buy an Apple computer? Now the thing that is happening there is the same thing that is happening in galleries. Intuitively we know that the real estate space in those shops is extremely expensive. And so having only one computer on a large table, well, that must mean that that computer is very powerful. It must mean that that computer is very, very good. And that is exactly what is happening in those galleries in London and New York and Paris. Intuitively, when you walk into those shops, into those gallery spaces, you know that the real estate prices are extremely high. In New York, in those rich neighborhoods, you can pay 20, 25, 30K a month in rent. And so you walk into that shop and you see 4 walls, and instead of the walls being crammed up with paintings, you see one painting on each wall on display. And so what does that mean? It means that that painting is extremely valuable. It is worth hanging in such an expensive place. All of these things are subconscious signs of wealth and value that we then connect to the artwork or connect to the Apple computer. And as a result, not only do we think that the object is more valuable, we experience it as more aesthetically pleasing. We experience it as more valuable, as we just described in the other research. And so what does it mean for artists who are showing in an art fair? For example, the artist in the beginning of this video, well, instead of hanging your booth full of artworks everywhere, leave a lot of breathing room. Only hang 2, 3, 4 pieces, because intuitively people know that that is a sign of wealth, that is a sign of importance, of value, and all of this stuff. Now, obviously, knowledge without execution is the equivalent of being a fucking dolphin. They don't have opposable thumbs and therefore did not change the world. And so the question becomes, how can we implement all of these selling strategies that I just explained? What can we actually do as an independent artist beyond art fair type of strategies? And that's where the free PDF, the ultimate guide to the selling secrets galleries won't tell you, comes in. It will explain you all of the details step by step, how you can implement all of these strategies so that you don't have to feel ashamed when people ask you what you do for a living anymore. Now, in order to make this video complete, we still have to talk about the biggest selling secret of them all, the one that makes all others obsolete, one that galleries stole or borrowed or used or learned from Picasso, who used it to turn doodles on napkins into thousands of dollars of profits. I share it in the video Drowning in Unsold Pieces, Selling Secrets Galleries Won't Tell You. Link is in the description and in the end screen. Don't forget to blah 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 blah. That's it. Get the hell out of here.